Hi, my name is Marie Hopkinson. Welcome back to the Chinese Medicine Podcast. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about character strengths, the final part of this series. If you haven't already checked out the start of this series, you can watch the first episode, which kind of introduces them and talks about how to use character strengths for short-term happiness, and particularly for things when you feel depressed, when you feel flat. Now, some of this stuff's still relevant to that, but this video is more about how you would use this particular area of strengths. There's a few different areas in justice for long-term happiness. So if you know that's one of your strengths, how would you build into your life to kind of explore this area and utilize this area and make this part of being a happier, healthier person. So this is part of mental health, right? It's part of being better in your mental health and helping yourself and helping other people and also helping your community. So within justice, you have teamwork, you have fairness, and you have leadership. So within these three areas, they are similar, but they're not exactly the same. So we're going to talk about how these might play out in a community role, or in maybe in your workplace, or just in your life, how you could use these. So teamwork, first of all, is about, obviously it means, working with others, where you must enjoy working well with others. And if that's a strength for you, you may be really good at helping people that aren't very good at working well with others, to kind of, bring their strengths out into that group, or bring what they've got to share, or contribute, or have a good time in that. Within teamwork, you have citizenship, you have social responsibility, and you have loyalty. Some of these values and these strengths, well, some of them are like values as well, they seem like a forgotten thing in our society. I think we could do with more of them. I think we could use them. And particularly things where, this is not really focused about yourself. So you'd be a person that puts the needs of others, or the needs of the whole, before yourself, let's say. You can easily see how these things in society kind of, people say that they're doing this for the good of the whole, but it's really benefiting someone else or some other greater good, not necessarily everyone. And within justice, you have fairness as a separate strength as well. So if you're, within teamwork, you don't necessarily have fairness, but it can be a really common trait to have both, to score quite highly in both of these things. So what is citizenship about? Things about, like, it's not just about me, but my actions for society. My actions for society now, and my actions for society, in the future. Like, what is our world going to look like in 10 years, 20 years, 50 years? So how do you utilize these strengths? What are some ways you can do that? So some of the ways you might utilize a strength like this, especially if it's something that you weren't aware of before, would be things just getting involved in the community. So something you're actually marrying up, something that you also really feel passionate about, and then utilizing that, like you're getting involved. Now, leadership is also part of justice, but people who have score in teamwork aren't necessarily a leader, right? So you can be a leader and not be very good at teamwork as well. And you can just feel that you want to boss everybody around, or, we'll get to that part in a minute, but teamwork means that you might just enjoy working in a team. You might enjoy the benefit that comes from a collaborative approach, like, hey, together, look at this great thing that we got done. Or you might enjoy the social aspect of that. You might enjoy the aspect of, like, you get to help other people that you might not normally get to help, or do things that you might not otherwise be able to do, because there's lots of things you can do as a group that you wouldn't be able to do as an individual person. So, getting involved in coaching teams or things like that can be really part of this. Getting involved in your parents and friends, or parents and citizens club, whatever, in your school. Helping out at a local homeless shelter, or things like that charitable things, church kind of things, or community things that, are part of the council, like go to your local council and see what they've got on, doing community garden projects, and there's lots of things like that. So that's part of it. Social responsibility is a big part of this, where you're sort of thinking, I'm doing something, I'm giving up my time. It doesn't have to be volunteer work, but often it is. Or it might be something where you start a business and you think, well, look, I'm doing half of this business is almost a charity, because you're doing something for the greater good of society. a few kind of business ideas come to mind. There's a business in my local community called Environment House, and they used to be around the corner from my shop, but I'm not sure where they've moved to now. But anyway, they basically took over a house that was converted into a shop, and all around this place was kind of little stickers and things like that to sort of show people how they could be more environmentally in their home, and they employed the use of these devices so people could learn how to do that. Because it's one thing to sort of think, oh, I want to do composting at home, but how do you do that? What sort of things do you buy? And they do workshops and stuff like that on that. And they'd show people how to do a worm farm, and they'd go around the house and show people how to be environmental in their home, like, save money on power so that, fill up the gaps with things, or you could get advice from people. And it also attracted a lot of people from the community that just had the passion for that, and they wanted to also teach in those areas. So this might be something, if you're, you have also a strength of learning, like one of the strengths another strength is love of learning, then you kind of combine these two together, and you're like, you might teach classes to people in the community on how to do this as well. Or just volunteering or starting a business or getting a job where you're doing these kinds of things where you're helping people, and it maybe in your workplace that's something that you might be really good at running team meetings because you're just good at that. You just enjoy it. Okay, so the next one in justice is fairness. So a few little points on this. You've got being just, like doing the right thing, and not letting your feelings kind of get in the way of the right thing or biasing decisions. This is a really hard one because what you might think is justice, others might not think of as justice. Now, it goes without saying to kind of think, oh, you'd become a justice of the peace, or you could become a judge, right? You could get into law and then become a judge. And there's a lot of need for people with a real passion for this stuff to be in those areas, right? Like every area in life, there's corruption. Every area in life, there's, people not doing it for the altruistic reasons. But this is something ultimately, and there's things along the way to that journey that you could get into. So one thing could be advocacy. Now, advocacy is like helping people not get taken advantage of. Now, this might be just within friends and family or things like that. So I'll give you a really simple, easy example where it's not like becoming a justice of the peace, which is quite a big process. I'm not sure if in your country you have those things, but like a recognised person in society that's able to sign documents and things like that. That's what a justice of the peace kind of does in Australia. And they're often used in mediation or arbitrary things or things like that. So my grandparents, they've both passed away now, but this was probably about 6 or 7 years ago. They were both living independently in their house, and a phone company had basically taken advantage of them and signed them up to this ridiculous deal. And my sister had kind of heard about that because she was quite, would talk to my granddad about those kinds of things, quite commonly. And she was like, Granddad, she was outraged that they would do that. She said, that's so expensive. Like, that's not what phone things cost anymore. And they've taken advantage of you and they've signed you up to this like long phone contract at the time where phone contracts, basically that would have been a good deal 5 years ago, but they've kind of taken advantage of the fact that these people are old and they don't understand that things have changed and that you can get phone deals a lot cheaper now. Anyway, she rang up the phone company on my granddad's behalf when she was there and had him there so that he could verify that she was authorised to talk on his behalf and all the rest of it. Ended up getting him out of the deal and said, look, you need to give him a better deal. Don't take advantage of my grandparents like this, or suffer my wrath kind of thing. And they were like, obviously quick, smart, change their tune and change the deal. So what I'm getting at is that is just you as a person just being able to exercise, to see what's right. Like, hey, these people are being taken advantage of. This isn't a fair situation. That's not fair. Politics is another area you could get into, like, especially independent politicians, can really bring a balance in parliaments to these situations where you've got one party, saying you must think this way, another party saying you must think this way, that whole idea of toe the party line. And then sometimes it's the independent people that are elected in some spaces that kind of, bring a little balance in there as well, and some sort of like, hey, here's another voice, here's another thing. So there's lots of things like that. So that's fairness, right? So the last area in justice is leadership. So leadership could be like organising a group of people. It could be organising yourself as an individual. It could be exercising leadership in your family. And there's lots of different ways that leadership can be really beneficial in community and, in business, in organisations, in your workplace, in yourself, right? Leadership starts with draw a circle around you and start leading yourself. It's not necessarily just barking orders at people or things like that. And if this was something that you scored high on and you're not sure what to do next, I would read some leadership books. I would go and get some good mentors in leadership and sort of think about, how can I, because you'll be interested in learning about it, for one, if it's already something that's a strength for you. It'll be something that you do naturally, but you might naturally do things that aren't that productive to being a good leader. Leadership is something that is a strength for me. But if it wasn't for people teaching me and coaching me and helping me and exposing me to other ways and other ways of doing things, my natural personality would have become a dictator kind of person. Like, do it my way. And I'm not explaining to you the reason why. Just, can't you see that this is the best way? No, people often can't see that and they need a different approach. So we're not talking about necessarily within these strengths you can have it doesn't mean you've got a particular personality type. So let's say you follow a Jungian psychology and you follow the 16 personality types, right? There could be 3 or 4, up to probably 10. Technically, any of those personality types could also have a strength of leadership, and the way that they exercise that, it will be different based on their personality type. So based on your personality type, so these things that we have are stereotypes in life where we think, like when I said justice, you might have thought of, is the Hall of Justice, right? Justice League.
Here in this great Hall of Justice are the most powerful forces of good ever assembled.
Like, are these superheroes going to come in and save us? Is that what that is, right? Oh, they're going to come in and, save me from the evil corporations, or save me from the evil of the world. That kind of thing. So there's lots of different permutations of how these things can play out, and it doesn't necessarily have to become a negative stereotype that you might have seen in society. And you might even, up to this point, you might have watched all these videos and think, well, I scored on some of these. These were strengths for me, but maybe you're not that happy about them. You're not sure how to use them. So anyway, I hope this has been useful and helpful to you, just expose you to these ideas. It's been great for me to read some of the comments. I'm glad that people have been getting